Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is all about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists, celebrating whatever it is that we can find to celebrate. And I do believe that there is something to celebrate each and every day. Some people have gratitude lists. I believe in celebrations, and I'm always looking to celebrate. I also do a show called Creativity in the Age of COVID. And about a month ago, I had the great pleasure of having Jan Daley on our show along with Dr. Judy Bloom. I enjoyed having her on the show so much that I asked if she would come back and do this show solo with me, and she said yes. That is worth celebrating. She has a CD out called Home for Christmas, and today we're going to talk about Christmas, past, present, and hopefully many futures. So before I bring her on, I'd like you all to enjoy the wonderful voice that is Jan Daley, and we will see her on the other side. Here she is.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe helps to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loading lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to you.
Jan Daley, one of the coolest people I know. Jan, thank you so much. That arrangement was wonderful, and it really lifted our hearts, so thank you.
On my new CD.
And your new CD, Jan's new CD, is available at the Welcoming Center. So if you want to go meet her or thank her for singing for the troops or ask her what it's like touring with Bob Hope, she'll be over there to sign a CD for you. So thank you, Jan. God bless you. We thank you so much.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And I agree. That is such a gorgeous arrangement. Who did that arrangement, by the way?
I came up with it. I came up with the bass line, and I thought, this was my favorite song sung as a ballad. And I came up with this and I went, maybe that's not good. So I played it for my pianist and he goes, no, I like that. I like that. Let's do that. So, he put it in and the guys just fell into place.
Well, it's perfect. I want to ask you before we jump in and we talk about your CDs and Bob Hope and all things in the world of Jan Daley. Today is the first day of winter, so we celebrate that. We celebrate the fact that this is Christmas week. In addition to those things, what else are you celebrating in your life right now?
Well, I think a lot of us are celebrating that we're here. We're here. We made it through. I'm a 3-shot person, and
I'm here.
So, yep. And I just feel so blessed and lucky, because a lot of people didn't make it, and so that's my first priority. The second priority, of course, is that I have a family, and in the midst of all this, trying to get ready for night, we're like, okay, are we going to? Do you have enough time to do the dinner and that kind of thing, and going to service Christmas Eve and da da da. I mean, we live a complicated life, and
well, I want to talk about that a little bit because we did talk about this a little bit when we did Creativity in the Age of COVID. You, and I really admire this in you, Jan, is that you have always put your family first. And thank you, on behalf of your family for doing that. But you've also been able to have a career. You've done that. You left the business for a while and, so that you could take care of your family. And going back to the very beginning, the holidays and everything, what was Christmas like for you as a little girl? I asked for a photograph of you as a 5-year-old. And as I'm going to pull this up, there's a reason for that. Because I always like to go back to the fight. I love this photograph because this really sets a moment in time. It's innocence. It's before. I mean, can you imagine the children in today's world? And my heart breaks for them. You and I, and I know that we can speak for both of us, we never worried about the things that kids worry about in today's world. We didn't worry about whether or not there was going to be a lockdown in school. We didn't worry about whether or not there was going to be gun violence in school. It was innocence. Our neighbors knew each other. Our neighbors checked in on us. The 5-year-old self to me is the purest self. It's before school starts, peer pressure, teachers start telling you who you should be and who you shouldn't be. Tell us a little bit about this little girl.
I think from the very beginning, I was this dreamer. I had all these dreams in my mind. I had no connections to anything. I was just a little girl in a little town. Actually, it was Inglewood, which is not a little town now, but it was a very simple life. And but Christmas was always my favorite from little to still, always just remember making or going to my grandmother's, and she had these great, from England, she had these great English tea cakes, and she had all this stuff, and all my 4 boy cousins, we would go in and raid the cookie bin, and then I tried to carry on this conversation, on this tradition with my granddaughter and my daughter. And my daughter said this last time, Madison doesn't really like those kind of cookies.
That's sacrilege.
Yeah. How could you say that?
I know.
So it's always been dear to me. And of course, growing up, I used to watch Bob Hope and just be glued to the television and thinking, oh, maybe someday I'll get to do that,
Plants
chances.
a seed and it will grow into a mighty tree.
Mhm.
But when you were growing up and the Christmas music, did you go Christmas caroling? Did you have a lot of music around the house? I mean, obviously, the music is so much a part of your life. When did the music really start to seep into your very solar plexus and start to find an outlet in your world?
I think it started very early. I was in choir, church choir, and school choir, and from third grade on, and I had my very first solo at church called singing "O Little Town of Bethlehem," and I remember my parents sitting in the very back row, uh, so they could make a quick exit if I was so horrible, because because every time they would walk, I've never liked to practice in front of anybody. So when they would walk by, I'd go, "Ah, ah," I'd do all these crazy things like Carol Burnett.
Yes.
And so when this big adult voice, as my mother tells it, came out of me, this little skinny kid, she was like, that's well, I'm born with Janine. That is my proper name. And she just couldn't believe it. And nobody else could, I guess. And, but that was at 11 that I had my first solo. So my mother loved big bands. So she always had that kind of music, which I wasn't that interested as I got older, like, the Beatles. Yeah, yeah. That kind of thing.
Now, did you have an outlet when you were in school? I'm a big proponent for arts and education, but at that time, did you have the outlet in your school to have the opportunity to sing and act in school? Because you're
Yeah.
also an actress.
Right, right. As early as grammar school, we learned how to harmonize, and we learned about music, and that was in grammar school. Then when we went into junior high, then we had a great music teacher who, I was in Oklahoma and I was in all the musicals. When I got to high school, it was horrible. There was like this big span. All they had is a talent show, which I would sing one of two numbers that I knew. And that was it until I got to college. And I went to a junior college and then had planned to go on to, a big university, whatever.
Mhm.
And she just gave me that impetus and such support. And then in college, I was the go-to girl. Oh yeah, ask Janine. She'll sing for anything,
Now,
And so,
but when
yeah.
did you first become aware that there was a world of show business, that there was something beyond singing in church choir and doing things in school, that you could actually possibly have a career at this?
You know, I think I was Miss Glendale. So a friend of mine said, let's enter this contest. I was like, oh yeah, okay. I really don't want to do that. She said, oh no, let's do it. So then I went on to win, and then went on to be Miss California. But it was there that it gave me a platform. And one night I find myself with the mayor of Glendale going to the Palladium, and there was Lawrence Welk, which I really didn't care for. I didn't care for that kind of music, right? And so, oh, this is Miss Glendale, and she knows how to sing. She's a great singer. And before I knew it, I was on, television broadcasting live, and I'm like, boy, did they take a chance, Um, and then they wanted me to be on the regular Lawrence Welk show. So that was that was my first television show, actually. And it kind of like, wow, okay, people actually like me. People are so, supportive. And it was that I think most artists need, is that people support you, but they believe in your talent. And
Mhm.
that's what gives you that impetus to go a little further each time.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Carol Lawrence, and she said being in this business is the greatest elixir in the world. The more you get, the more you want. But the true test is whether or not others want that elixir. And that's always resonated with me. Obviously, you've got the talent, you've got the looks, the whole package. When did the other elements start to fall into place? And when I talk about the other elements, I'm talking about agents, producers, managers start knocking at your door saying, we want to represent you. We want to work with you. We want to put you on the right path to give you a career.
Basically, it was in when I was Miss Glendale, I auditioned for a rock and roll band. And not that I had a rock and roll voice, but they liked me.
Mhm.
I was so green, so, I didn't know anything about the world. I'd never really traveled. I did go to Hawaii once with the YMCA, but
Mhm.
I didn't know anything. And all I knew, is I had my songs, and so we toured for about 9 months and couldn't wait to get off tour. And I went to the Musicians Union. They gave me a picture, a piece of paper that had a manager's name on it, and he was very well known and represented a lot of talent. And I sang in his office, and he immediately signed me. And I just thought that's the way everything went, And I didn't know anything. And so then he put me, in those days, girl singers open for comedians.
That's
So
right.
I opened for George Gobel, the Don Rickles, just all the fabulous comedians. And when I came back, an agent had expressed his wishes to, represent me through my manager. And he was the one that got me to 4-Star Studios, who were doing the Big Valley and all that. And they were doing a new show called Here Come the Stars. And so I, again, just sang right in the office. I was bold and stupid. I was ignorant to, what you're supposed to do, but I just did it. And
Well, I have a question regarding that. Did you have an idea of where you wanted to go in the business? Did you have like a role model that you wanted to emulate in the business? Someone's career that you wanted to be like? Or did you completely put your career in the hands of your agent and your manager?
growing up, going to all the movies, my biggest influence was Doris Day. And I just loved everything she did. I loved her voice. I loved her movies. And I thought, well, she's a singer, but she also acts. And I got into acting in college, and then took many, many lessons and wonderful teachers. And so that's kind of, but by the time I got to that point, their Doris Day was kind of phasing out, and the whole music business was changing, going through a change. Then we had the rock and roll coming in, but I did well on television, and so therefore that's kind of how I got into more and into acting and so forth. So it was really that studio that launched my career.
And how long were you in the business before Bob Hope came knocking at your door? And how did that begin to happen for you?
It began because this particular series that I was in, called Here Come the Stars, Bob was one of the, it was kind of like a Friars, if anyone knows about Friars Club. They would,
Can you believe that I was a friar?
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
I was inducted into the Friars.
we have lots of stories to catch up on. Anyway, the show was about roasting somebody, and they would always have like Jimmy Stewart. I mean, just these icons that I was like, oh my God. And one time was Bob Hope. And of course, I grew up watching all the Christmas shows, and I got to sit next to him and we talked. And then I always got to sing and then do a little patter with the star being muted. And so I forgot what you asked.
No, when he came, how long you were in your career before he came knocking at your door? And
I
you had been doing TV work, and then he came along, and the Friars.
Right, right. And then a lot of stars will, if they see somebody they like, they'll keep it in the back of their mind. And I went on to record a song that was nominated for an Academy Award. So there was a lot of things happening, and I was on that series. And he called my manager and said I would really like to see Jan, and everyone had to audition for him, even if he were a big star. He wanted to see kind of spontaneity, probably, and
And
just
you auditioned specifically for him.
yes, yes. And I think I got it. I think I was 20, going on 21, and I think I really captured him in my voice, probably in the series, because it reminded him of Doris, his wife,
Mm.
and because I had a lower register, although I hear it now and it sounds really high.
Uh,
Your voice changes as you get older, but I think that's kind of what clicked for him.
Now, when you auditioned for him, were you auditioning in a general sense of auditioning for him, or were you auditioning to do the overseas shows for the troops?
Oh yeah, it was specifically for the Christmas tours, and yeah, just for that, and of course, when you do one thing, it leads to other things.
And let's talk a little. I've got a photograph here that I'm going to show that you sent to me, and here are the two of you together. Uh, and I think this is the first time that you went off together.
I
Um,
think, yeah.
Yeah, if you can tell us a little bit about the preparation, first of all, because it's one thing that you're going to get all the shots and the inoculations and everything, but I can also imagine as a kid, watching these specials, and I remember seeing these faces, and my mom and dad saying a lot of those guys would not be coming home, and it hitting me. And even we're going to show a clip in a few moments. It was sad to know that a lot of those guys did not come back.
Right.
How did you prepare emotionally to go over and do this?
I don't think any of us who on that first tour were prepared for that. We prepared to be an entertainer. We prepared our songs, our dances, whatever, and we had rehearsals, and we were not prepared. Period. To I closed each show with Silent Night, and the first day that I sang it and closed the show, I looked out at the audience, which I normally would, and at about the middle of the song, I looked at them, and it still brings emotion to me that there were tears coming down their faces, and pretty soon Jan Daley's tears were coming down my face. And gosh, so many years, but it's still there, just as if it were yesterday. And so I walked off stage, and Bob pulled me aside and said, "Look, Jan, you cannot do that. You cannot look at the audience on that song. You have to look straight into camera, and just because they're wanting to see happiness
Mhm.
and jokes and women, especially young girls." And so, boy, that saved me, because that day I was just an emotional, and they were really good in keeping us not informed on close calls, except for one day in Da Nang. And we were, after the show, we would come and we would sign autographs, pictures, whatever. And this one day in Da Nang, the crew came and pulled us off stage, and we're saying, "What are you doing?" They said, "Get into the helicopters." And we said, "But our gowns and our makeup, don't worry, we'll get it." We got in the helicopter, pulled up, and in Da Nang, there's a big hill. And as we pulled up above the hill, we could see we were surrounded by Viet Cong.
Mhm.
It was like, oh my God, of course, we're in the middle of a war.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so those were the things that I'm happy that they didn't, let us know about these things, because we could carry on. That took about 24 hours for us to get over that. And, the bombing of our hotel when we were out doing tours, that kind of thing. But,
So, yeah, it's interesting because I've done a lot of research on Hello Dolly, and Mary Martin's Hello Dolly went to Vietnam, and they did not know from day to day where they were going to be performing. They were not informed for security reasons. And many of the locations were bombed after they performed there. And it was a very unique experience. Were you also kept in the dark, so to speak, as to where you were going to be performing?
No, we actually had, they would let us know every morning, but we did 2 shows a day. And, but we knew we were going to Long Binh, or we knew, so we did know that. But of course, if that changed, they would tell us. And I don't remember. I think there were a couple of times it changed, but they didn't say why. They just said, "Oh yes, we're going to do this show," and said, we said, "Oh, okay." We were all young, and I think we just had faith in his company, his entourage, and everybody that traveled with us. We had press. We had 97 of us, so every time we'd lift up. There were 97 of us with all the luggage, all the, gowns, all the makeup, blah, blah, blah. And so it felt comfortable and safe. And that's what they wanted, because they knew that they would get the right mood, and we would have fun. And that is contagious on stage.
Well, I don't want to make you cry again, but I'm going to make you cry again.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to show a clip, if you don't mind. And I think you know which clip I'm going to show. And this is a clip that we shared the last show that we did together. But it really touches home as to what the experience was like. With your permission, I'll share this. Yes, here we are.
And here's our canary, Jan Daley, with Screaming Eagle PFC Ferguson. He should have paid to get in. What a reaction.
Where do I begin to tell the story of how great a love can be? The sweet love story that is older than the sea. The simple truth about the love you bring to me. Where do I start? Alone, you brought me meaning to this empty world of mine. There'd never be another love, another time. You came into my life and made the living fine. He fills my heart. He fills my heart with any special thing, with angel songs of wine. He fills my soul with so much love that anywhere I go, could be lonely. I reach for his hand. It's always there. How long does it last? Will love be measured by the hours in a day? I have no answers now, but
This much I can say. I know I'll need him till the stars don't run away. And he'll be there.
Wow. Wow. What an incredible memory. How many times did you go over with Mr. Hope?
I think as something like 3 to 4. I forget. But that particular fellow, I always wondered, did he come back? Private Ferguson, did he come back? And we posted this. It is on my YouTube channel, Jan Daley Music. And like maybe 5 years ago, I wasn't really paying much attention to comments. I was doing other things. And one girl wrote and said, "That's my grandfather."
Wow.
And I just, oh my God, well, so how is he? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, he always remembers you. He always remembers, being in Vietnam and the Bob Hope shows and how much they, help the guys for, that moment, that 2 hours of time. And, but he has cancer.
Wow. Oh. Wow. 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 Jan, when we look at someone like Bob Hope, who is such a part of Americana, even though he wasn't born here in this country, everyone, but he is part of Americana. He has legendary status. Tell us about the man, Bob Hope. I want to know what he instilled in you, life lessons that he instilled in you as an artist and as a human beyond the art itself.
Right. He taught me so many things just watching him and perform. There's one story I'll share with you that I'll never forget. It was Long Binh, Vietnam, Christmas Day. It was about 125 degrees out. And the drummer and I were suffering from heat exhaustion. We were on our way to the Red Cross tent. And there we find Bob looking up, leaning against the tent with a sun reflector, soaking up the rays. And I thought he was old then, that kind of thing. And he had this just amazing energy. And but he never let anyone really in. Maybe a couple times when I would sit next to him on the plane when we were going on a long flight. And he was a very serious person and very professional. Mm-hmm. And he said when he was getting flack, I guess we were all getting flack, that we were over there supporting the war. Well, we weren't over there supporting the war. We were there to help the guys that were there, to give them a sense of home and bring laughter to them. And so that stung. That was painful for him.
I've never understood why we in this country gave such a backlash to the artist who went over to make life a little bit better for these soldiers who were there trying to do what they were forced to do against their will. And some of them were there defending our country, doing their jobs. And Martha Raye, when she was doing Daley on Broadway, the theater was getting death threats because of her involvement there. And I've never understood that.
I loved Martha Ray. What a kick. We traveled with her as well. And yeah, I don't get the connection. I mean, we're flying over into the war and we're entertaining kind of at our risk. I look back at it now. Of course, I didn't think of it then being that risky, but it was. And we were doing it for just because, well, I was doing it for a reason. Golly, I'm emotional today. That my father was an Air Force pilot in World War II. And the war was over. He was waiting to go home. Couldn't wait to see his daughter that had just been born. And he volunteered to pick up POWs and was shot down.
Oh, God.
So I never got to meet him. And I started USO shows. I had my own USO show before I went with Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought I could get near him, and I felt near him that maybe he was looking down.
Yeah. Wow.
Proud. And I was in Alaska one time, and that's where he was stationed. And I got chills, So my reasoning for going was just, to connect with someone I never got to meet, and to support these kids. And I was a kid, but to support the men and women who some volunteered, but most of them were drafted, and just to give them some laughter and some smiles and because it meant so much.
That's a beautiful story, and I'm sorry that you never did meet your father, but he would be proud of you. And again, it goes back to where we began, the sense of family, especially this time of year. And many families this year are not able to be together because of COVID and everything. But I want to get back to your own family. Your career was going great guns, and you made a decision to step away from it to raise your family. Can you take us to that moment, and what was the deciding factor at that moment? And that was probably one of the hardest decisions. Maybe it was an easy decision because you knew that you were doing the right thing for your family, but the deciding factor to go in that direction.
It was a hard decision, but it wasn't at the moment, because when I was 23, I had cancer, and they told me that I would never have children. So when I got married, and we tried for 2 years, and I thought, well, I understand I'm not going to have children. And then we did have. Well, I lost a child first, but we were excited because we thought, well, at least I can get pregnant. And then I had my daughter, but then there was a whole thing that went on that I was going to die and she was going to die, the whole delivery. So there was a lot of history that went into making this decision. Mm-hmm. And I had done a Christian album in Nashville, and I was just finishing it. And she came in, and all of a sudden now I'm a mother, and I'm thinking, oh, I can do this. And I had 2 other contracts with Muriel and Samuel. I mean, I had all this stuff going on. And I said, oh, I can do this. I can be a mom and be in this business. And I was coming home from Nashville, and my husband was meeting me, and we were meeting in Chicago at Christmas. And she walked right past me, and she was 2, and she didn't even know me. And I went, can't do this,
No.
That was it. That was the definitive time that I just said, I have a miracle baby. You can't do this, Jan.
No. And at what point did you decide? I mean, how old was she when you decided that you were going to start singing again? And I know that you sang, didn't you sing with Robert Schuller and in the Crystal Cathedral? And was that clip from the Crystal Cathedral? And what was that experience?
What it did for me, longing, I did some acting things. I chose to do acting parts that I would be here in town and I wouldn't have to travel. But as far as the singing, then I went into songwriting, thinking, I had that creativity that I needed to have. And then became a Christian kind of late in life. And I met my husband. It wasn't the Crystal Cathedral then, but I met my husband there. So it was like a natural thing that I went, I actually sing, that kind of thing. And I sang for 10 years there. And so for that was so family oriented. And we could do it. We would drive to Orange County and do that. And it was a blessing, to actually be there and be singing and, be appreciated. And so basically, I didn't start singing on the secular side until my daughter graduated from college. No, actually, she was in college. And I said, I know what I'm going to do when my daughter goes to college. Kind of
You were going to graduate too.
Oh, yeah. I was graduating right into, But when I got back into the career, the music had just completely changed. The business had changed, and I didn't know where to go. And through my songwriting, I met people that said, you have to meet this producer. So Clifford Bell, great guy. And
oh my God, I know Clifford Bell.
Yes. And so he said, oh, you can go right into cabaret. And I went, really? I didn't even know what cabaret was then, because I was opening in Vegas and around the world, London, all that stuff. So I did the cabaret and that was great. And so I did that for a while, for maybe 10
Have you
years.
done any of his Angel Food, Project Angel Food shows?
No, actually, because I went into the jazz field from somebody else seeing me through the Grammy organization. And I kind of, I'm still doing partly cabaret, partly jazz because I have two audiences, but I didn't get to do that. And I'm sorry. I'll have to get in touch with him.
Well, there's still time for that. So hopefully he'll be able to do it again in 2022. Let's talk a little bit about Home for Christmas and this CD, your favorite Christmas songs. And how did you choose the songs that you were going to put on this album, CD, LP? I still call them those things. And how did you choose the songs, and how hands-on were you? As we heard in the first song that we listened to, you have a great ear for deciding what works for you.
I just put most of the songs on here are like my favorites. There's so many Christmas songs, and I wanted to do them all, but you're an independent artist and you're the one paying for all the musicians and studio time and all that, so I had to narrow it down. And I pretty much I would sit at the piano and arrange all of them, as far as where I'd be, I come back to the verse and the tempo and the whole thing. And then I had orchestrators who are mostly my musicians, who would then, we'd go in the studio and they wrote the parts and stuff. But pretty much all the arrangements were mine. They orchestrated it. And I'm friends with Alan and Marilyn Bergman.
Oh, love them both dearly.
Met through Julie Andrews, and I was always a Bergman fan. I loved every song, and I sang a lot of their songs I have in my repertoire. And I said, at a dinner we were having, and said, I'm doing a Christmas album. Do you have any? And like, oh, absolutely. And they sent me 3 songs.
Do we have a Christmas song?
Being a songwriter, I knew this is great. And it was really hard, but I found, they gave me one of the songs that I liked called the Christmas Love Song, and just fell in love with it right away. And so I included that on my album. Of course, Christmas Song, which you just heard, Mommy duo I loved. But I think I'll Be Home for Christmas was really dedicated to the guys and gals that are not going to be home. And that was all for the GIs, not even thinking about COVID. But, a lot of people, a lot of students are stuck, on campus. I don't know what's going to happen. And it was really dedicated to people who aren't home for Christmas and wherever they consider their home. And so I wanted to have that be first up on the CD and titled that.
I want to go back for a moment and ask, when did your daughter first become aware of your history with the music that you've created and the fact that you did perform with Bob Hope and the work that you've done with the troops? When did she first see these clips that we just saw today?
I think we got these clips because I have a whole album dedicated called Where There's Hope. All the songs that he introduced that Cole Porter wrote. I didn't even know this when I was starting to research. But so we got this, God, I'm going to look at the album. I think I did this in, 2009.
Your YouTube channel, by the way, which I subscribe to, is incredible. I just love it.
Thank you. But getting this, actually, when I was doing cabaret, which is even prior to that, they said, can't you get some film? Clifford said that. Oh, I said, oh, maybe I could. So I didn't have film on this. And so they were very nice. They said, as long as you're not selling the film. I said, no, it'll be in a show. And so we sat down, my daughter and I said, here's what Mommy used to do. And I mean, she was aware that I was singing because she grew up with the Crystal Cathedral, but that was pretty much all she'd seen. And when she saw that, she turned to me and she said, Mom, this is great, So we were just sitting there crying together, But so it just opened her eyes of what that was like, because, I mean, basically, when she was growing up, I mean, he wasn't doing that, and if he was, they weren't really. I mean, he traveled, but with Afghanistan, forget it. It was just too dangerous, and he would do local or just in California, and so it wasn't. She didn't grow up like I did, watching these shows, and it was. I think maybe she had a little more appreciation for what I did, and it was a good moment for us.
So what's next for you? I mean, after the holidays, going into 2022, and are you? I want to ask you, since we are at this point, are you the type of person who makes resolutions, or I call them intentions rather than resolutions? Where do you stand on that as we go into a new year?
Well, I thought that I would do this intention or this resolution because I wrote it about 2 years ago, that I have the story, my personal story with my father. And I won't even tell you, there's a whole connection there that I didn't know until my stepfather, my mother had passed away. My stepfather passed away in 2000, 2 days before 9/11.
Wow.
And I was so emotional, everybody was, and I pulled out, I said, my mother, I know, saved everything. She must have saved something of my father, because I only had one picture of him since she remarried. And we finally found, after going through their home and going, through everything, found 2 boxes. And the first picture I pulled out of my father, he was like, and I went, oh my God, that's me. My mother wasn't like that. She was a great stay-at-home mom, made great food, but she sang in choir, so she appreciated music. But as I went through all these, I found a photo that was the beginning of this story. and I hope it will be a limited series. I will probably do it as a one-woman show, and I had started writing 10 years on it, and it just like life gets in the way, and then I was actually, I don't know if you can see this, but I was working on this Best of Jan Daley during the pandemic, started in 2020, and did a video on the single, How I Love the Rain. So go to Jan Daley Music.
This as well. Now, #1 on Billboard. So, as we're going to wind up in a few moments, but I end my shows with my homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. So I've got some random questions that we're going to ask you just for the fun of it. And the first question that I'm going to ask you is, what is the one person that you, and maybe we know the answer, maybe I don't, but what is the one person in this business that you have most enjoyed working with? And you don't have to name a name because there may be so many. You can just allude to that person and just tell us why you've enjoyed working with that person.
Off the top of my head, Don Rickles was, his personality was, he slammed every ethnic, I mean, he could probably not work today because people don't laugh about themselves as much as they used to. But so his persona was this, dig, yeah, a pole and a whatever. But he was the sweetest guy that I ever worked with. And he even said at one point, gee, Jan, don't you think maybe you should, like, now you're married and, have a family or, that kind of thing. He liked me enough to know that I would miss that if I didn't try. And, I worked with so many. I love Dean Martin, opposite of what everyone thought, serious about his profession.
Have you seen a documentary on him?
No, I haven't.
On TCM, it's incredible.
I know Dina, and
Yeah.
I know that she had sent me something. I just haven't had time. But he was so much fun, but very serious. He was in on all the rehearsals, but you didn't know he was there. And I sang my song this one time, and then I hear this, he's up in the booth, and he goes, Jan, that was really good, but could you try the, like bar 47? I'm like, what?
That's wonderful.
Really right on with everything and very professional. And so it was a great combination that he had. And I think Sinatra, I didn't work with Sinatra, but I sang a concert and he was in the audience and I didn't know it. Thank God. I would have just wouldn't have gone on stage, And so I got to meet him afterwards and he was just charming. And I went to Jilly's later and stuff. But as he walked away, I heard him say, he's got it. I'm like, oh my God. And so I use that, because wow, to have such a legend say that.
Wow, that's incredible. I had tickets to see him and Shirley MacLaine at Radio City Music Hall. And the day that I had tickets, they made an announcement that he had pneumonia and the show was canceled. And he never performed again. And I never got a chance to see him live. And it's one of my biggest regrets.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a YouTube clip of him singing, It Was a Very Good Year. Go to that. That just personifies, and he's just with musicians. And it just
that song, by the way, Irvin Drake, who wrote that song, was one of my dearest friends. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Him and his wife, Edith Drake. I miss them dearly. Were just very close to me. Wow. My next question, what is the wildest thing that you have ever done in public?
Oh, goodness. I could say it was kind of public. I was auditioning for a part in Moonlighting. And after I read, some crazy thing, I just my head went down and it smacked on the desk and everybody laughed. I don't know why I did it. It was just instantaneous, like, oh my God, Jan, you know. That kind of thing.
Tell me you got the part.
I did. I was used to try and be perfect, but it was, everyone used to say, you know, when you're not, you're the funniest. And that's what draws everyone in. And I went,
That's great. What was the hardest secret that you ever had to keep?
Oh, that I was pregnant. I was doing Muriel Cigars with Susan Anton, Margaret Davies. Davies was from New York. And Susan and I became great friends. And, you know, we were trying to get pregnant, you know, but we didn't see anything. So once at 4 months, my doctor said, you are pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, I still get chills. And so I went to my agent. I said, sit down, because I was the Dodge girl and I was doing Muriel Cigars. I said,
wow,
okay, I have something to tell you. And he goes, what? And I said, I'm pregnant. Now, the Muriel Cigars was $100,000, and that was a lot in those days. And to be, you know, a spokeswoman for Muriel Cigars for 5 years. And he said, okay. And so we better call them. And so I was 5 months in, because that's the time that you're going to carry this baby, pretty much. And so in the meanwhile, I was traveling with the girls, and we were doing all these things. And Muriel Cigars and low ceilings with everyone smoking a cigar, and I had morning sickness. That was fun. And so they called them, and so I sent them a picture, because I was so slim by the time I was doing Muriel that I was way slim, really skinny. And so I sent them, I said, this is what I look like. And so I was in a bikini, and I was 5 months pregnant, and you'd never know it. I just looked like a little bit of a tumor. And so because I wanted to keep working, I knew that I was making good money, and that was buying baby clothes. And so I traveled with them to all these conventions, and we were constantly doing, you know, commercials, and these sexy commercials. And the last one I did, I wore the same gold gown, and then I just had my dressmaker make a chiffon thing underneath my breasts, and so it was flowing, and then zipped it halfway down, and you know, no one knew, you know. I was like, no one's gonna know, and they didn't until we told one person, and then it got around. The entire convention was like, oh my God, you're pregnant. Anyway, so at 7 months was my last show and last thing.
Wow.
And,
well, that's a hard secret to keep at 7 months, I guess.
yeah, I mean,
That's great.
And we even swam, and we had like a race between the three of us, and I was a swimmer, so I knew I was going to swim. But then I thought, oh, I'm diving, and I have, you know. So anyway, that was a really hard secret.
This is a business where lies are prevalent. So what is the biggest truth that you've ever experienced in your career?
Biggest truth? Wow. Golly. You mean that somebody said something to me, or? My mind is, I think my mother always said, why are you singing too loud? You know, I couldn't answer that.
And you will take that as a truth.
That was the truth. You know, she was saying, why are you singing so loud? You know, sing soft once in a while. And, you know, you're not being yourself. I know you since you were teeny in my tummy, you know. So she said, be yourself and people will love you more.
That's wonderful. That's
So
great.
that
And maybe this is, you've answered the question. I don't know. Maybe you've answered the next question. Maybe you haven't. What is the greatest thing that you have ever been told in your career?
that probably was the best, yeah, because it got down to the truth as an actress. And oh, good, the gardener's out there blowing weeds.
Oh, it happens every day at 5 o'clock here. Um, uh,
Um, that was probably it. Just to
okay.
know that you can be yourself, and as an actress, you are. That's because everyone out there is special. So if you're trying to act like somebody else, which I always thought would be better, if I was Doris Day, I'd be better, you know. Um, so if you are your true self, you are special. You are unique, and because everyone's unique.
That's the lesson today, folks. What one thing do you miss most about another place that you have performed in?
What I will miss most, or
Uh,
what.
uh, Something that you miss most about another place that you have performed at or in.
Mhm. You know, I would say one of the performing arts centers in Modesto. It doesn't sound like, you know, a big deal, but it was a beautiful facility. Loved the people, and but then in the other aspect, performing for GIs
Mm.
was probably, you know, the most, that and maybe Christians who are all assembled, and mostly Christians that are like, hallelujah, go, amen, all that. I had never, you know, the guys and gals out there were screaming. And so you knew right away that they liked you, what you were doing. And then some, you know, if you performed in front of Black gospel churches, oh my God, I loved them because,
Oh my God, the best. The
oh,
best.
girl, go get them, you know. And I had never experienced it because I was in the Crystal Cathedral, which was very, very white and very, very conservative and that kind of thing.
I'll tell you a very quick story. I was booked once in Philadelphia at the old Dick Clark Studios where American Bandstand was filmed for an organization called Sapphire Casting. And it was an African American company, and I was the only white person there. And when I got there, I said to the casting director, I think there's been a mistake. And he said, no, I saw your act. And he said, they're going to love you. And I went in, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. There was no color barrier. It was just us having a great time. I loved that audience. Thank God they loved me. And it was just one of the best experiences. Just loved it.
That feedback right away, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes, it was just wonderful. When did you show the most courage in your career? And maybe you've answered that today as well.
I think, you know, singing while I was pregnant, which moms out there will know that at a certain point, it's harder for you to get your regular breath because you've got a baby growing.
Mhm.
And I was still singing while, you know, while I was pregnant. And maybe I think it took courage. And plus, I must say that during this first 5 months, I was threatening to abort the child naturally. It
Mhm.
was tough, you know, and I was tougher, I have to say. And I think
But
it,
you also had those concerns about your own life and the life of the child.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when a director said, hey, Daley, you got to lay off that pasta, you know that they don't know your secret, and
Mhm.
you have to own up to it, and you know, just keep on keeping on. You know, I just to your audience, just like it's never too late, you're never too old to fulfill a dream in your mind or in your heart.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Who is the person that you were most candid with in your career?
Hmm. Hmm. You know, I will name drop, but I'll just say that um, I've become friends with Julie Andrews, and what a dear. And I remember having conversation with her, and she said, I love your breathiness of your singing. And I was like, I love you, and her personification. And it was like kind of, because we were always around people, but this was a one-on-one and just the two of us. And she was so sweet. And to say that, like, I like that kind of breathiness. I wish I had that. And I'm like, are you kidding? I wish
Yes.
I would have been cast in a lot of musicals had I had that very high voice. But that's probably when it was two artists, two being very honest with each other.
That's wonderful. And this is my last question for you. What is and again, maybe this is one you've already answered today, the hardest decision that you ever made in your career?
Probably to give up the singing and to mother. But that was in the decision was the hardest. But once I became a mother, then there was no looking back. I loved every minute, every agonizing, every fun minute, every, just beautiful moments.
That's wonderful. Well, Jan, I want you here anytime you want to be here. This has been a Christmas gift for me. So thank you for being here. Don't go anywhere for a moment. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. I can speak for Jan, I'm sure, when I say this. Those of us in this business don't take it lightly when you spend a little time with us. So thank you for showing up today. I hope that you will check out Jan's website. It's on the bottom of the screen there. Listen to the music. Go to her YouTube channel. Check out what she's done and what she's doing. There's a lot there, and she ain't done yet. There's still a lot coming up. And check out what she's doing. If this is your first time here at Richard Skipper Celebrates, I hope that it won't be your last time. On my YouTube channel, there's a button that says join in the celebration. I hope that you will click on that. I hope that you will check out the other artists that I've celebrated. And we've got some phenomenal guests coming up in the new year. And I hope that you will help me celebrate all of them. My goal is to celebrate artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? I'm all about celebrating. Leave a comment here on today's show. Share this with your friends. Tell other people about this channel, and let us grow together. Let's help each other out. Not only do I want you to watch these shows, but to also check these artists out. When you could go out and see their shows, please take the time to do so. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. This is what I want you all to do. I want you to go to Jan's website, and I want you to order 2 copies of Home for Christmas. I want you to keep one for yourself, and I want you to go to your Facebook friends list, and I want you to pick up the phone, and I want you to call the 3rd name on the list. And I want you to call that person, not an inbox message, not a private message, not an email message, a phone call. Let that person know what they mean in your life. I've lost some very good friends this year. You never know when it's going to be that final phone call. Pick up the phone, let them know what they mean to you, and then send them a copy of Home for Christmas. Now, I'm going to leave the screen right now. My dear friend David Friedman says we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, before I leave the screen, Jan, you're going to have the final word. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching right now. Don't worry about how to end the show. As soon as you say goodbye, I will end the show. Thank you for the gifts you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give. And happy holidays. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you. probably something that I just said a couple minutes ago was, it's never too late. You're never too old or too young. And I think if it's in your heart, and maybe you've not done this, you haven't had a chance, you've been working, or you're a mother and you have 3 kids. I never thought that I could be back in my business and have a #1 jazz album. That never even occurred to me. This album, The Home for Christmas, is #4 on Billboard right now. And so it's just never too late to give up your dreams. And you can be 80, you can be 11, just keep on and refine and learn about your craft, whatever it is. And never too late, never too old to get that dream. And Merry Christmas, happy holiday. And let's get vaccinated so we can all go back to living like we are supposed to do, fully. Big hugs and kisses. I don't know.